Hello everyone, it's Shannon here. Thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, we're going to do one of my favorite MISTI stamping techniques, pattern stamping. I'm going to start with my MISTI and this beautiful stamp set by Pinkfresh Studios. It is called Lovely Blossom Stamp Set. It is a layering stamp set, so all of the images in this stamp set have 2 stamps to complete the image. I'm going to also use my acetate grid to help me here. This is just going to identify the middle point of my A2 panel. I'm going to start with the first layer of stamps, basically the layer that I want all my images to be darker, so usually like the veins of the leaf or the stem of the flower. So that's what I pulled off of the stamp set, and I'm arranging here on the lower half of my A2 panel, again using that grid to make sure that I don't go past that center line of my A2 panel. It's also important to point out, because this is the first layer, I do grab, right here I've grabbed the top of the flower and I'm now using it to help me figure out where that stem of the flower needs to be, so I save enough space for that second layer stamp. So keep that in mind, especially for those flowers that have a top part that it's going to take up a lot more space, or maybe the top part of the leaf that's going to take up more space. So use those second layer stamps to kind of help you gauge how much space you need to leave. But if it does overlap a little bit, it's okay. So I just picked up the stamps and then stamped them in Pinkfresh ink. This is called Stargazer, really beautiful dark blue. I stamped it twice to make sure the images were nice and bold and crisp, and then I rotated my panel 180 degrees, and now I'm going to stamp these set of stamps on the lower portion of my panel, and that's going to complete my first layer of stamps. And again, I inked it up twice and stamped it twice with the Stargazer ink just to get a nice bold crisp color. So that completes layer 1 of my stamps. I've already gone ahead and cleaned and removed my layer 1 stamps, and now I'm going to position my layer 2. I'm going to use those first stamped images to help me position these leaves and the tops of the flowers. And once I get these all in place, I'll then fold my MISTI over here and pick them up. This second layer of stamps are going to complete the images of these leaves and flowers. I'm going to ink these stamps up with my lighter color, and I'm going to use a blue again. This one's called Blue Jay from Pinkfresh Studio. Again, I'm going to ink it up twice and stamp it just so I have nice, bold, crisp images. Once I finish that, I'll then rotate my panel around and stamp the other half of my front panel. Again with the Blue Jay, again stamping it twice so the images are bold and crisp. I love this blue monochromatic color. It really reminds me of like porcelain or china. I just think it's really pretty, and blues are almost always what is my go-to for kind of monochromatic cards. Just really pretty. So once I finish stamping that bottom half, my stamping part is done on this card. So now I'm going to move on to kind of filling in the white space. This is definitely an additional step. You do not have to do this, but I felt like there was just too much white space. So I grabbed my marker here, my Copic marker. It's in a lighter shade. This is B32, just a little bit lighter than my other blues that I've used. And this is just going to fill in the background, and I think just kind of make it feel a little bit more substantial, that not so much, because I just feel like the white space was a little too much, a little overwhelming. And if you want to make this go a little bit faster, just make a little bit bigger dots. So once I finish covering all that white space, or filling in all that white space, I've now moved on to making my sentiment. So I went ahead and die cut out of white cardstock 4 hellos. This is a honeybee die, and then I'm going to layer 2 of them together. So I'm just going to use some Tombow Mono multi-adhesive, place it down on the top of the hello, and then stack another hello on top, making sure that they're all aligned. I like to kind of squeeze on the sides to kind of make sure these die cuts are stacked up perfectly on top of each other. Now that I've done that double stacking, or I should say stacking of 2 hellos, I'm going to add some more adhesive to the top of the hello, and I'm going to adhere it to this shadow layer cut out of Vellum. This is also a die in this hello die set, and once I've stuck it on top, I will then grab another hello, and I'm going to do some ink blending on this one. So I have a mini ink blending tool here, and one of the blues that I used earlier, this is Blue Jay, so my lighter blue, and I'm just going to start by ink blending on this hello, kind of creating a little bit of a gradation, but more just getting some of that blue on there and trying to get it as even as possible. You could definitely do this before you die cut the hello out of the cardstock, so you could just do it on a scrap of white cardstock. First do your ink blending and then die cut. That might be a little bit easier. I didn't come up with this until after I've already die cut it. So now I'm going to ink blend on my second color. This is my darker shade, the Stargazer color, and I'm just going to ink blend on the lower portion of the hello. This just is going to create a really pretty gradation on that word die cut. So now I'm ready to adhere these hellos together. So I'm going to put some glue down on the last white hello and then pop my ink blended hello right on top. And once I get these two hellos lined up and stacked on top of each other perfectly, I'll then glue this on top of the Vellum shadow. So in all, there's 5 layers to this sentiment. 2 cardstock layers on the bottom, the vellum layer, and then the 2 cardstock layers on top. And I stacked all these layers up just to get a nice dimension, and the 2 cardstock layers under the vellum gives it a little bit of lift so that vellum is a little bit more opaque. When you have vellum right on top of your images, you kind of lose the vellum a little bit. So if you can pop that vellum up, you get a little bit more of a shadow, and also helps to help that sentiment pop away more from the pattern background, which can be a little bit busy sometimes. So now I'm just going to add some glue to the back side of my panel, which I did trim down 1/8 of an inch on all the sides, so it has a little white border now thanks to the white card base. And then I'll just glue that sentiment down, and once I get that stuck down, my card is finished. I'll now hold the card up to the camera so you can get a good look at this pattern background as well as that sentiment. I really love how this card turned out. Pattern stamping, I think, is just so cool. It's such a great way to get a full panel of pattern really quick and easy, and I also like kind of how it has some kind of symmetry to it too, because we kind of just rotate it and stamp the other half the exact same way. So I think it's just a really cool technique and works so well for creating really beautiful patterns. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I used, please check out the links below. And if you liked this video, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel, and you can also follow me on Instagram or check out my blog, and I'll share those links in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.